It's often said that buying a car outright is usually the best decision, mainly because you're not paying finance companies and paying interest on the loan that you've taken out, and you're not in debt. For some people, they do not see why they should pay the full amount of a car even if they own it outright. Is there a right or wrong answer to this? You will find out in this video. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So lovely to have you here today. My name is Carina darling. In this channel I talk about personal finance and growing wealth. In this video I'll be reviewing whether buying a car is more beneficial than leasing. What are the ways of purchasing a car and what are the cheapest options? I was actually shocked at my finding because I performed a thorough analysis and also dealership and how they come to the prices that they actually set for the cars. I'll start with the basic and what are the ways that you can buy a car. There are a couple of options that open if you want to buy a car. There's outright purchase. Outright purchase, as the name implies, is you go to a dealership, you have your money either in the bank or cash if it works for you, and you purchase the car outright. So you buy the car, there's no finance put on it, and it becomes yours and you walk out of the dealership. There is a lease purchase. In a lease purchase, you pay a certain amount every month inclusive of ownership of the car. So you pay interest and you pay some part of ownership of the car every month, and then when it comes to the end of the term you pay the balance, or whatever the balance is. Usually that balance is about 20% of the value of the car. Then you take the car and it becomes yours outright. There is hire purchase. Hire purchase works quite similarly to lease purchase. You pay an initial deposit with a hire purchase and you pay a certain amount every month towards the car, and usually that installment will be anywhere between 3 years and 5 years, and you just pay that continuously for that 5-year period. And then when you come to the end of the term of the contract, you probably pay roughly about £100 fee, and then the car becomes yours. Similar to most finance methods, until the car is fully paid off, it does not belong to you. It's actually owned by either the dealership, the finance company, or the bank. So until that is finalized, you can't have ownership of the car. But once all of those payments are made in full, then the car is legally yours. Let's look at the pros and cons for these various options. I'll start with buying a car outright. I think it's quite straightforward, where the pro is that you don't have to pay finance every month. You own the car, it becomes yours. But there's also something that is called the opportunity cost of buying the car outright. I would actually leave this part of the video to a bit later in this video when we look at the opportunity cost of purchasing your car outright. Now I'm going to look at the finance options. What are the pros and cons? I'll start with the lease option. What is the pros of leasing a car? For leasing your car, there are 3 pros. And these pros are: you have a low monthly payment for the car. You relatively would have a car that is quite high spec to be able to lease because your monthly payment is low. So you might be able to buy a car that is much more expensive than maybe if you were buying a car outright. And leasing usually comes with affordable lease terms. So you have a term of maybe 3 to 5 years. If you break down the total amount of the car over a 3-year period or a 5-year period, you stand to pay quite a lower amount monthly. The 2 cons that I have for leasing a car is that you don't have the option to return the car, and most lease options are usually for new cars. Some pros for hire purchase is that it's actually good for people who have low credit score. Most times you'll be able to pass your credit score. You eventually own the car, so you're not just leasing it, you're actually going to own the car at the end of the term. And there are no mileage restrictions. Most lease options will give you a mileage restriction, maybe 10,000 miles a year. But whereas with hire purchase, you don't have that, because eventually the car will be yours. You're paying both the finance of the car, you're paying the interest, and you're paying a bit of the loan that you've taken. So at the end of the contractual term, then you will own that car outright. The con for hire purchase is that usually your monthly repayment is quite high. You don't own the car at the end until you have paid the outright sum towards it, and also there is high interest. So usually when you get a car on hire purchase, the interest is much higher than the other options. There is another 4th option, which is what is called PCP. PCP is like a hybrid between the hire purchase and the lease option. So you take a car, you pay for a period of the term, and then when you come to the end of the term, you can actually decide whether you want to pay the total amount left on the purchase of the car or whether you want to just get another car. With this option, you are constantly recycling your car every 3 to 5 years. The payment option for this is much higher than hire purchase or a lease payment. What option you prefer will determine the type of car you go for. If you're someone who likes to drive new cars regularly, then leasing might be a better option for you, or even PCP could be an option, because that way every 3 to 5 years you recycle and you get a new car, and that's a good option. However, you have to remember that it can be much more expensive than the other options. How do you plan to use your car? You need to remember that with both PCP and leasing, you're not the owner of the car for the duration of the term, so you have to stick to your mileage criteria. Like I mentioned, sometimes some companies will specify how much they want you to be able to drive that car in a given 12 months period. If you're getting a car for long commutes or travels, then maybe you could think about hire purchase, and that could be a better option for you because there's no restriction on mileage with this one. PCP and leasing again have to follow the guidelines of wear and tear. You have to ensure that you look after the car, that the car is well maintained, because it is not your car, and until it eventually becomes your car, if you decide, depending on the option that you go for, but your focus will be on maintaining, ensuring that the car is looked after properly. And where there are damages to the car and there are bumps and issues with the car, then you're going to have to pay a huge fine come towards the end of your contractual term. It's also important to remember that within the 3-year period of taking this new car, you're covered under the warranty of the car. So if something goes wrong that is not your fault, then the manufacturer will repair that for you. With hire purchase, you don't have these restrictions. You can pretty much drive the car however long you want. You can go above the mileage. You don't have to worry about minor bumps and scratches here and there, because eventually the car belongs to you. So long as you paid for the term of your contract, the car belongs to you. So in this second half of the video, I'm going to look at the financial implication of either leasing, hire purchase, buying outright, and also PCP. For leasing, it's about depreciation. How much is the car going to depreciate for the time that you've had it? If you go for a premium car, most times they tend to retain their value, but cars that are not so much premium cars would lose a lot of value. From this option, then you can see that sometimes it's actually better to lease a car than to buy it outright, because if you buy a premium car like a Mercedes-Benz or a Range Rover, chances are these cars will retain their value and will depreciate less as well. It's really important that when you're in the market for a new car, that you do your research. What I would suggest is do a bit of a price analysis of these various options. Choose the car you're interested in. Get a PCP quote for 36 months and do the same for a hire purchase or even a leasing, and compare both of them. Compare the options, compare how much mileage you're getting, how much you're going to be paying every month, and again, when you come to the end of the term, how much it will be costing you either to pay outright to a dealership or whether it's going to be factored into your monthly repayment. The last half of this video, I'm going to focus on the opportunity cost of leasing or buying a car outright. So if you lease a car, we've agreed that you put a down payment and then you pay monthly. If you decide that you will buy the car outright, then what is the opportunity cost of doing that? Let's say, for instance, you spend £30,000 buying a car outright. What is the opportunity cost of actually taking that money and putting that into stocks and shares over a 5-year period? I've done an analysis for a Mercedes A1 and just looked at how that car would depreciate in 3 to 5 years, as opposed to if I took that money and put that into stocks and shares. We know that the S&P 500 increases by roughly 8% in a year. A year that it does really well, it's about 8%. A year that it does less, probably about 5%. But I'll take the average of 8% because there are some years where it does way above 8%. So if I had about between 25 to 30,000 to put into a Mercedes car, and I've driven it for 3 to 5 years and roughly done about 10,000 miles every year, that car would depreciate to about 21,000 come the end of the 5-year period if I were to put it back on the market. Technically, if you think about it, you've only lost maybe about 7 or 8,000 pounds, or probably less, for driving a brand new car for 5 years, which is not so bad. So based on my calculation, if this same amount was actually put in the S&P 500 at a return of 8% per year, you will be going home at the end of 5 years with just a little bit over 44,000. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to put 30,000 into buying a car outright, or would I prefer to just put a deposit towards the car and pay it monthly and take the chunk of that money and put that into S&P 500? That's a question that you have to answer. Other things to consider when embarking on purchasing a car, or whether and choosing the option that is right for you, is to consider, if you do intend to keep the car for a longer period, then a hire purchase might be an ideal option for you, because once you have finished paying off your hire purchase of the car contractual obligation, you can keep the car for as long as you want. So if you're someone who drives your car for 7 to 10 years, you have a 5-year period where you're paying off the car, but then once it's paid off in that 5-year period, the rest of the time you own the car, you don't have to pay any money towards the ownership of the car. And if you are someone who have taken on board the opportunity cost of either paying for that car outright, or taking a deposit and putting that towards buying it in hire purchase and putting the rest of the money into stocks and shares S&P 500, then your money will be yielding you an income whilst you are paying a monthly repayment for this car for the period of 5 years, and after that period you own this car outright as well. Another consideration to think about is that with PCP you can actually have a car every 3 to 5 years. So if you're someone who likes to drive a car every 3 to 4 years, you need a new car, then PCP might be a very good option for you, because at the end of your 3-year term you can return that car, take another new car, and start enjoying that car. And with this option you won't have to worry about maintenance costs, because in the first 3 years most times there is barely any maintenance cost. The car is still very new, and when it starts accruing maintenance issues or costs, you won't have to have the car anymore. You would have returned the car and taken another new car. So when you look into the maintenance cost of what it is to maintain an older car, PCP might be an option for you if you're someone who likes to drive brand new cars, and also if you're someone who doesn't like to spend money on maintaining a car. But bear in mind that if you go for the PCP option, then you have to ensure that the car is well maintained, because if there are any issues with the car, if there are bumps, no matter how minor they are, you will be heavily penalized for them. I hope you found this video helpful. That is going to assist you in your next purchase of a car, depending on which option you go for. Give the video a thumbs up if you do like this video. Share it with family and friends who are thinking of purchasing a car, and some of the considerations to bear in mind when looking into purchasing a car. And do not forget to subscribe to this video. Let me know in the comment section if there are things you want me to look out for. And also with this video, I've thought about adding another video which will just come up on the screen here for you to watch, which could be quite beneficial in terms of your personal finance journey. So on that good note, thank you for watching. Take good care of yourself. Bye for now.